contact me in LinkedIn at Watts S. If you, some of you had said that you're interested in my international experiences. This is my resume. Starts here. I have just started teaching at Keimyung almost a year. I'm new. Last year, I was also teaching for IIM, and I'm also associated with the university in Vietnam. Roshan, while you were here, I can't easily check the chats while I'm talking and going through the slides. So if there's any important chats, can I rely on one of you guys to tell me if something's interesting or important?
All right.
I've been, in summary, teaching with Korea since 1995 until about 2015, and I was with Yonsei University. Then I was taking my students and faculty over to China, Russia, Japan, and Vietnam every year. And I became increasingly interested in Vietnam because I'm focused on the developments. That's why I initially came to Korea, because Korea was growing the fastest basically in the world and the safest at the time. Korea slowed down with the growth and Vietnam kept growing. So I went over to Vietnam, and I'm with a university there, but because of coronavirus, I started checking out, helping Keimyung. But as soon as I flew from Vietnam to visit the dean here and some of the faculty, Vietnam closed the airports. So I'm here full time for you guys. And in addition to that, I have been working with different companies, many different companies. As far as the teaching experience, you can see I have been a visiting professor of in many places and teaching probably over 100 different classes. A lot of you probably have international faculty in your departments. Well, when I was with an international faculty, we would have the faculty rotating every year, every 2 years. And if students liked a class and that professor left, I would take it over. So I teach many different classes, and my PhD was in information management and online education and training. So I got into online education quite a long time ago. Let's get back to and then there's also research details, publishing. You can see some of the publishing started in before 2010, 2008, 2000. There's, anyway, quite a bit of publishing, but this is the main presentation I'm going to talk to you guys about for a very quick overview. It's what I show students as the student requirements and introduction to any class I teach. And it's basically been the same presentation for the last 10 years. And it's worked very well with Yonsei. It's worked well with Sogong. It's worked well with Hanyang University in Korea. It also worked well at various high-level universities and super poor low-level universities in Vietnam. But I'll start by being blunt. It's not working very well with my Keimyung students. I generally require students to do one term project each year and write a paper at the end. And to get them motivated, I try to get students involved in the weekly topics that I'm teaching. So I give a PPT, and then a group of students is also supposed to give a PPT related to it. That's how I've been teaching. Usually it goes well. Some students and the other faculty in my department are saying they think it's very hard for the students. But like I say, I have had very low-level students, almost with no education, able to struggle through this, even with this. So this is the introduction to what is a paper, what is the typical social sciences paper, since I teach business, management, marketing classes. I talk with the normal words, give a summary of what the paper is about. That's the abstract. Talk about why the paper, why the topic is important. That's the introduction, the background literature, methods, results, conclusion, and of course, the important stuff with the referencing. And I tell people academically in class, the students have to present the PPT by midterm. I'm doing that with Keimyung because last semester, many students just left it until the very last week until they started. So hopefully if they do it by the midterm, then they'll have week 9, 10, 11, 12, up to 15 to actually write the paper. So it shows the marks for that. And I allow the students to propose methods for evaluations. First big thing I teach is the difference between reliable information and unreliable information. So I talk about how most students know of CNN or BBC or blogs, and I talk about that's usually not fully reliable. And the Scopus or Web of Science is the most reliable. So I say with the term papers, students need to give at least 10 reliable Scopus journal references in their paper. Why am I talking about that? I'm talking about that because I have found for many years that universities usually hinge on publications. Almost 80% of universities are focused, at least the executive committee in universities that I know of, are focused on publications. But it's not just publications, it's a little bit more than that. When you go into things like the Times Higher Education, or when you go into the QS university rankings, those are very good to go through, but about 80% of all the university rankings is associated with papers, especially if the students do a class project related to whatever you're teaching, plus related to the company they want to work with. So you involve companies at the same time. So that's your community involvement, your community activities, especially if you get an executive to talk with your class and say, this is a problem we have. Can you guys in class come up with possible ideas or solutions or marketing ideas, whatever? So that's a big part of it. And with the very lowest universities that I've worked with, the university knows that the country counts how many international academic peer-reviewed journals or articles you publish. And so maybe a potential cheating way, but it's for the lowest level university where they're students that don't have any money or in some sense concept of money. Those students actually will write something for the class and publish it into a student journal. And in Vietnam, that actually counts for the university rankings, any publication, even in a student journal, as long as they have the international students helping to edit. So it's an international academic journal article. And so the students do that regardless of the quality. Once students give a professor a variety of papers in a class, 90% could be garbage, but there's a small amount that might be at least good ideas or good starting points. So I find it's easier to develop that. And in the previous universities, I've had many faculty that don't even have a master's degree and definitely don't have a PhD degree and have never published before or really written before. Some of those faculty use the student papers and develop them into Scopus publications. So that's one thing. And so I need to start by teaching the students how to get a reliable paper to start with. And this goes through the library, how to access it through the library. Then I also show something like this. And this student paper example is written by a Korean. It's for our class project, which was marketing and their specialization for a Korean employer. And so what these students did is they followed this. They have the abstract, introduction, background literature, methods, results, discussion. And this is the actual student paper. And when I show new students and Keimyung students, for example, this information, the students are going, oh my gosh. And I ask how long it might take to do this. Some of them say it may take many months. But this was actually written in one weekend. And then the students are shocked. And we see here that all of this indented quoted area, this is a direct quote from what the students heard from an executive in a company they interviewed. The rest, you have company information or research information they're referencing. So it's a pretty good basis. This is very key here. This is basically a literature review showing all of the articles, Akrar, Althaus, they're publishing articles supporting social media and how it can predict the future for companies. And then down here, Bolin and Foreman, these are articles, research talking about the challenges of social media predicting the future. And so students think, wow, they read all of these articles, it must have taken years to do. And so that's not actually the case. The only thing the students did was find this yellow. So this white was created in some other publication, and they just added 4, 5, 6 new papers or references to this and modified this. So if I show you a little bit lower, here's the end of the paper. It's about 7 pages long, quite a few references here, and then there's a grant application here. This is the Scopus publication, and it's talking about the understanding predictive power of social media, the exact same thing that the students are focused on, except this is general, focused on Europe, and the students took this and focused just on Korea and just on the company they wanted to work with, like L'Oreal Cosmetics. And if you look more closely, here's a bunch of literature review, and here's more literature review. This is the exact same thing, supporting social media predictive power, Akrar, Althaus, etc., and the Bolin and Foreman. It's basically the same paper, but it's different enough to be a credible, ethical, new publication. And so this is, what I usually get my students to do. And although this could be a lot of work for some students, by getting the students to start thinking about the jobs they want and interviewing people, this week my students are interviewing people in companies for their papers. It makes for a more interesting class. So I also show the students how specifically to download it. Maybe you guys can talk to me because this never works the same. And I've gone through, I don't know, 15, 20 different demonstrations on how to download articles from the library. But whenever a student tries, it usually doesn't work. We can talk about that later, but nonetheless, I teach the students how to download something. And then I talk to them saying that they should start by finding a paper that they really like, and then just take that same paper and modify it for Korea or modify it for the company they want to work with. So keep the same style. So I don't have to teach them the research format. I don't have to teach them writing methods. I just say, I give a format that is popular, and my format is this, the popular social science format. But if they find a journal article that has a different style, I'm open to accepting that. And so the other thing is, by midterm, students are supposed to show me that they have found several interesting articles, and they make a PPT talking about what the proposed research is and the draft of the research paper. That's what my students are doing so far. And how I start the class is I tell students to stop following other people. It's nice to be loyal, it's nice to be obedient, but it's better to take care of yourself, at least your future. So don't follow as sheep. And they should look at the reality. If they just wait in line and do your regular work without thinking of the big picture, it's very hard to get a job. And so if the students use a class paper to present to the company, they automatically are adding value to the company. They're automatically getting a relationship with the company. Several, if not most of my students end up getting jobs for the companies they're doing the term papers with. And this is my favorite slide. I haven't found too many other people talking about this. Maybe I can get your response from this, but I'll start by explaining what this is. I believe the students have an incredible opportunity if they work wisely in class. Almost every teacher requires classwork to be focused on either an exam or research is showing increasingly it should be on a term paper. Papers are better at demonstrating knowledge than just an exam. So increasingly students are doing a paper in class, but if you just do a paper on the 4Ps or just do a paper on your textbook, once the class is finished, the paper goes in the garbage and they never think about it again. So I tell the students to think of the bigger picture. Write the term paper for the class and for an employer, a company you want to work with. Give them some sort of consulting ideas or solutions, whether it's for marketing, finance, tourism, management, whatever. And then at the end, you can put that into your resume and you can publish it in a student journal or an international journal. So that's step one is done. Contact a company is step two. Step three is try to publish it in some sort of journal. Step four, put it in your resume. Step five is very strange to Asia, but it seems to be a standard of graduate school in North America and many parts of Europe as well. Especially for graduate students, they have to basically pay for their studies. And you're probably aware that like Apple is what, a $2.2 trillion company? Several companies are so rich that a lot of the world hates them just because they have so much cash. And so their marketing department is aware of that. And the marketing department sets up a program just to give back to make the society more pleased with them, happy with them. And so they give back money to the society. They can't give it to competitors. They can't give it to other businesses. The easiest organization or person to give it to is professors and universities. So companies like Apple and Toyota and Ford, GM, probably Tesla now too, they give a crazy amount of money back to professors. And completely unlike Keimyung University's grants right now, where you have a pretty complicated application process, I'm going to go through and show you how I focus mostly just on the corporate social responsibility grants. And so I also talk to students about how they should understand who they are. This helps identify what is their characteristics. I also talk to them about the trends in society and their environment, and if they know that stuff. And since I'm teaching management, the idea that many people know Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, and they think that they're the most successful business person around, but the idea of the Rockefellers, Carnegies, and the JP Morgans, they were far more successful, but 100 years earlier. And the thing that's important is the environment. Being in East Asia is kind of important. And one aspect of the environment is companies are making so much money. If they just follow that money, it makes a big difference. And as you can see here, Apple, $2 trillion now. Microsoft, $1.8 trillion. So many companies are so rich, they give a lot of money back, often as grants. And so professors, you usually know grants are very long applications, but this should impress you. The Ford Motor Company, they ask you 100 words, describe your organization, like Keimyung, 100 words, describe who you will work with, 100 words, what is your grant project, 100 words, why should the world care, and then just how much money you want. That's it. This is 400 words. And this actual grant application is 10 years old. The new application is half of that. So it's a very small amount. And so what I'm showing here is before these companies started charging crazy high amounts to get this grant information, I was able to get this grant information, whether it's 3Com or 3M or American Express, American Airlines, eBay, Chrysler, Citibank, Ford Company, Microsoft. It's pretty easy to find companies, grant offices that will pay you. And the simple thing to do is just go to Google and type in foundation, comma, grant, comma, and the name of any big company. And you will probably find they will give a grant. And like I say, it's often very short, simple application. The next question is, how much will they give away? And most people are shocked to identify the average grant, for example, you can see here, is from $300,000 to $1.3 million is the average grant size. And students are kind of shocked about that. And then you have to start thinking, you know, if you know Bill Gates is worth over $100 billion and he wants to give half of that away, that's like $50 billion in the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. That foundation has to give away millions of dollars all the time. So if you're just asking for $1,000, it's wasting their time. If you're asking for $10,000, it's probably wasting their time. They usually give $100,000 to $1 million away. And those are the main things as far as what to talk about. There's lots of details here. I've gone through and we talked about the student motivations, career development, systems to develop publications, how to develop CSR grant applications, how executives can collaborate. I went through this class requirement PPT, a grant application. I can show you more of that if you're interested. How I've talked to you about how grant applications can be very short. And I talked to you about the ideas for values of grants. I haven't talked to you about what the research shows can help you join or help you win your grants, or the idea of career development. So are there any comments from you guys? Is there anything that you would like me to get into? Anything I've missed yet? We've gone through about 20 minutes so far. That was the overview. Now, if you are interested in one of the areas, I can go into more detail. This is the main.
Actually, yeah. So I was wondering if you had applied to any of these international grants.
Mm-hmm. Yes, many.
And what was the outcome?
Well, I've done okay with grants. I have led international conferences and teams of many professors over to international. We went to Ethiopia, we went to Kenya, we stayed there for a summer. That was all grant funded. I stayed quite a bit longer teaching at several of the universities there and teaching in some of the communities that were very simple. That was part of a grant. And then there's smaller grants also. So if you like, I can show you the actual grant application details, if that's your question.
I mean, is it as short as you said it is? Like, just to have a glance?
It's not my choice. So what we...
So I'm on the Ford Foundation now, and it's pretty much, what is it, 400 words and then under 2,000 words?
No, it's not 2,000 words. It's 2,000 characters. That's including spaces and a period.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Yes. So what I'm showing you is the old-fashioned version, and the new version. If you want, I can show you that also. Again, you can see my screen. Just type in foundation, type in grant, and then type in anything. If I type in Ford, you will see this here. And almost a lot of companies have this. I think it's this one.
Yeah, it's very good.
So this asks 400 words to describe the general idea, and then the full idea, 2,000 words. So again, that's about half a page. And other than
2,000
that,
characters, not words.
yes. So it's about half a page.
Yes.
And so other than that, they're asking for your first name, last name, and how much money you want. You can't get much shorter. And this is, I believe, the second biggest grant foundation, maybe in the world, after the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They're incredibly active. And this, what my point is, I'm not trying to promote the Ford Foundation. I don't focus on applying to Ford because it's very big and it's very famous. And so there's a lot more people applying for it. I usually go for, I suggest you go for the big companies that people aren't going to think of when applying for a grant, especially when you know that almost every major multinational corporation has to give back to the community. And if they give to anybody that could be a company, they're creating competitors, and that's a headache. So they can't give it to other companies. They can't give it to competitors. The easiest, safest way to do it is to give it to universities. And so I require my students to do the class project, do a term paper, and a grant application. And so many of them cannot be published. Many of them are not going to be successful for sure. But in general, grants companies, grant managers say 1 out of 100 is successful. And if you're interested, I can show you if that is something that you're very interested in. Again, almost every major company has a foundation office, like MetLife Foundation, Microsoft Foundation, Ford Foundation, Citi Foundation. And the amount, depending on, if you go to the foundationcenter.org, it will tell you each country and how much grants are being given and used in each country. And all of this is just grants from United States organizations going to pay for grants in other countries. So for Vietnam, they had $125.4 million went to 402 grant applicants in that year. And that's generally every year. Korea, South Korea had, what was it, $1.0 billion went to 822 applicants. And so it's pretty crazy. And this is in Vietnam, where almost everywhere in Asia, academics, professors, and universities don't really know very much about grants. They generally only know about the university grant or the Ministry of Education grant because they just don't have that experience. It's new. But in the advanced old type countries, it is popular. And this is even in Vietnam. And this shows almost every university, even though these universities might have only been in operation for 10 years, they're still getting a lot of grant funding. And so to be successful, Z, you were asking, I think what you're trying to ask is, how hard is it to get it? And so you don't just go to Google and search foundation, grant, a company name, and then find whatever they have and apply. That's a little bit foolish. Anything you do, we are educated enough to know we need to do research in that organization to find out what they want and work in a mutually beneficial way. And so you can find out online a lot of information about these companies, and you should find out, if you're serious. I don't require my students to know, but professors, yes, research the background. For example, with the Ford Foundation, you can find lots of information, their address, their phone number, email, websites, all the different details about how much money they have, how much money they're giving away. They're giving away, $500 million every year, and they have like more than 12, I think it's like $14 billion in their endowment that they're responsible for. But another thing is, more importantly, find out what is their purpose, what is their activity. and what is their program areas, and what is their field of interest. Write your application for this and almost forget what you care about. So find out what they want to fund and just implement their projects. And more specifically, was it Shannon, were you saying that you checked online and the Ford Foundation website, it's very clear. It shows who they paid and why they paid and what they did with that pay before. So you can find out how much they paid for each project. So if you just ask for $50,000, or what's the new settlement grant, $10,000 at our university, if you ask for $10,000, they're not even going to look at you, because they have to give away $500 million every year.
Yeah.
So $10,000 is just going to be not worth their time, especially because I've done a lot of research on this, and I've researched the winners. What's common with the winners, and what's common features in grants is you have to have a responsible, qualified, experienced person to win the grant. But that goes for anything, whether it's a big project for $1 million or $10,000. You still need to be the same. And so if you understand that, you might as well apply for what they want to give away, which is more than $200,000. The next thing that increases your chance of success is to identify, again, what the grant manager wants. He is just a regular Joe Blow that is in charge of giving away crazy millions of dollars for Bill Gates or some company, working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. What he needs is to find somebody responsible and qualified, respectable. And so you're looking for the best resume you can get. When I started this, I used somebody else's resume as the main person. So I asked the vice president of the university if they would supervise this grant project. They agreed, so I could use them in the grant. I use their resume. And so their resume, they have a lot more publications, a lot more community involvement, and different details that the grant companies like. So he had a better chance of winning than my resume. But I am part of that team. It's just he is number one because he gets the fame more. So work with the best resume you can. Is that understood? Work with a team of people. The next one is, when you understand that grant manager, if he just gives it to one organization, there is worry at the back of his mind that that one organization will cheat them and run away with the money. The University of California, Los Angeles, they did that. They got a lot of grants, and they basically they used hundreds of millions of dollars to buy yachts and mansions and parties just for the president of the university. And when people found out about it, they didn't have to pay it back. They just said, okay, sorry, we won't do it anymore. Yeah, I thought it was for good for promoting the university, but we won't do it. So a corporate social responsibility grant, it is a gift. They want to be double safe that who they're giving it to is good. So it's not just a person. If you apply from 2 universities, you have higher respect or chances of safety than 1 university. If you apply from 2 countries, it's probably more respectful than if it's just from 1 country. So there's various different details that can help raise your chances of grants like that. If you want, I can show you more of the details like this. These are summary features. As I showed you the first time, the project management, this other guy, Dr. Huang, he was like the vice president of the university. Me was I was a lower level guy, just one of the lead investigators. And then this guy, he was basically like a church manager or a YMCA manager and we were training people for online education in parts of like Ethiopia and Kenya. And so the next part is the money. Don't just focus on asking for money. If you show you're serious, it increases your likelihood of success. Now, if I simplify details and just to make it super simple, say every professor is making $100,000 a year, but you're only working about 100 hours a year teaching, like 45 hours per class per semester, maybe 80, 120, something, not that many hours per year, you can calculate your hourly wage could be worth, many hundreds or thousands of dollars. And you are required to spend some of the time in the classroom and some of the time on grants or research or publishing. And so if you say any minute that I'm thinking about publishing or any minute I'm thinking about grants, I'm getting paid from the university $100 or $1,000 an hour. If I do that for 10 hours, that could be $1,000 or easily up to several $1,000s. I'm investing my salary into this project. And if I get another professor, that's two professors investing $20,000, $50,000 in a project. And if we have scholarships to students involved to do something like this, that could easily raise our investment in the grant project. So that's exactly what we did. And as if you can see here, we actually asked for $300,000. Why? Lisa, can you guess why this grant is asking for $300,000?
Let me guess.
Yeah. I actually told you guys already.
Well, it should be like at least more than 100,000, and well, yeah, it should not be a too small scale project.
Right. And I researched and I found for this type of project, this company has been paying about $320,000 many times for this exact same type of project. So I'm asking for about the exact same amount. When I first started thinking about it, I was just going to be teaching some poor students in Korea how to use online education. But then when I found out it's $300,000, I was like, damn, I got to change my grant. So we were able to bring professors from Korea and Germany and France and many different countries. We had a conference over in one of the areas that I researched had some of the poorest communities in the world, in Kibera, which was a settlement in Nairobi, Kenya. And so we had the conference in Nairobi, and several professors were helping teach some of the places there. That's part of the grant funding. And I stayed there for quite a while, teaching some of the homeless and the single mothers in these homeless places how to develop their own businesses. And so that $300,000 was part of what the company likes to give away. The second part is, why did I ask, or why did I say the project is almost $700,000? Roshan, can you guess why did I say the total project value is $700,000?
A good question. I don't know exactly.
For
Can
2
you
years?
guess where any of the money would come from, or any of the costs, what that would come from? If we show, again, just to simplify things, if we said a professor's salary is $100,000, then I can say half of my time is supposed to be on class time and students, and more than half of my time is supposed to be on research and grants and publishing. So 50% to 60 or 70% of my salary is for research and grants. So if it's $100,000, that's $50,000 or $70,000, just me, I'm investing for 1 year on this project. And if I have several other people that, remember, there's several people I'm working with, each of these other professors is also donating part of their time, and that time is valuable. That's where this comes from. And renting a conference room, paying for surveyors, paying for food for conferences, things, and transportation. It's pretty easy to come up with this number, and yet a lot of this number doesn't have any money moving. Like me saying I'm going to invest $50,000 in a grant project or a research project, maybe Roshan will think, Sean, you're full of shit. No, you're not going to do that. But the truth is, if I spend months on a research project, that is worth $50,000, right? The Keimyung University is paying that salary. That's where it's going. And if Russian is part of the group and Z is part of the group and you're all part of the group, that's like 50, 50, 50, 50 for each of us. So by us showing we are investing in the project, that is another factor that increases our chances of winning. If we show that we are qualified with PhDs, that's nice. If we show that we've been teaching for many years, that's nice. But if we show we've been researching this area for many years and have many publications, that's even better. And if we show that we are invested financially, personally, that's even better. Don't forget that some of these corporate social responsibility grants are only 400 words. They don't have time to check, a lot of these details. They just want to make sure that when they're giving you the check for $100,000 or $300,000 in front of CNN, when you're shaking the hand, taking this check, they look good and you're not going to embarrass them. After you take the check and CNN is gone, the cameras are gone, they're finished. It's very different than educational and government or Ministry of Education grants. So we can go through it, and these are just notes, tips for successful working with grants. There's many wealthy people giving grants all the time. Find an organization that shares your interest and ask them for grant funding. I tell that to students. And then the idea of many good grant providers only require applicants for funding that are 3 to 5 pages in length. You need to follow these details. You need to follow the point system. You need to follow what they think